My name is Sebastion, and this is my sister Tela.
No, my name is Tela, and this is my brother Sebastion.
Either way, this is Bloodline Beatdown.
We love wrestling.
And sports.
And wrestling.
And music.
And wrestling.
And movies.
But mostly wrestling.
So we thought we'd give our 2 cents.
Or 4 cents.
To the world of wrestling, sports, music, and movies.
AKA sports and entertainment.
We're not insiders.
We don't know anyone in the business.
But boy, are we opinionated.
And with that, let's talk about the NHL Playoffs.
So, for this, we're just going to run down a little bit of what's happened so far in the NHL playoffs and kind of project where we think things are going to go in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So, to start, we'll talk a little bit about the first round. We do have 3 teams on the western side of the bracket that have already advanced, those being Winnipeg, Vegas, and San Jose. So, congratulations to all those teams. Eliminating Minnesota, the LA Kings, and the Anaheim Ducks, respectively. In the other matchup in the Western Conference, we do see the Nashville Predators, who have a 3-2 lead over the Colorado Avalanche. You want to talk about the Eastern side?
Perfect. So we will have, in the first round, Tampa Bay Lightning versus the New Jersey Devils. Currently, Tampa Bay Lightning leads that 3-1. We also have the Boston Bruins versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Boston Bruins are leading 3-1. The Capitals versus
the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Sorry, just looking at a logo here. Capitals and the Jackets are actually 2-2, so pretty close game there. And then we have the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. The Penguins are leading 3-2.
All right. So, so far, things seem to be going the way that I predicted. If you want to follow my official NHL bracket on NHL.com, it's the official ST3. You can see my picks there as well from what we'll talk about here. Did so far pick the 3 winners, Winnipeg, Vegas, and San Jose. Not in those games. I thought all those series would go a little bit longer than they did. And those teams are clearly very good, good teams out in the West. I do see, personally, Tampa Bay and Boston advancing. And then I have advancing the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals. I know the Capitals have a history of not performing in the playoffs, but I think they got a favorable matchup. That is a 2-2 series, as Tela mentioned. But I do think that the Capitals end up advancing into the second round. How do you see that rest of this first round playing out?
Yeah, so I definitely think the Predators are going to advance on the western side. As we already know, the other 3 are kind of set in stone for the second round. So it'll be interesting to see that second round kind of play out on the western side, since we do have 3 strong teams already going into that second round. So getting into that third round of playoffs will be fun. Throwing it out there now, I'm going Winnipeg, and I'm going the Knights. The Las Vegas Knights, it's their first year. I can't imagine they're not going to get close. They're doing amazing already. They have a lot of great players. So I'm definitely putting them in that third round. And then on the eastern side, Lightning, I can't see them not winning that series. Bruins also, 3-1 for both of those games are huge to kind of come back. It's not impossible, but it's definitely not in my foreseeable future. I don't think that they're not going to take that win. I'm also going Capitals. They've always been a strong team, so they're definitely getting to that second round. Penguins, they'll be there as well. So with that, moving to the third round, I'm saying Bruins. They're on a roll, and I'm saying Penguins for that third round. So we'll have the Winnipeg Jets, Golden Knights, the Boston Bruins, and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
So my conference finals matchups are very similar to Tela's. I have the Bruins as well advancing over the Lightning. I think that'll be one of the best series in all of the playoffs. They've had a good regular season series. I think that's going to go 7. And nothing's more exciting than a 7th game in hockey in the playoffs. I think Pittsburgh versus Washington will be a strong series as well, but I do see Pittsburgh winning that and advancing. So I do have Pittsburgh and Boston on the Eastern Conference like Tela does. On the West, we do switch it up a little bit. I see Vegas getting by San Jose, I think Vegas has some really good players. They were really smart in the way that they drafted and signed free agents. And by draft, I mean the expansion draft, not just the first-year eligibility draft. But I have the Predators coming out of that series with Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg's done well. They've advanced for the first time in quite a few years into the second round. But I think Nashville's just a really strong team. They were in the Stanley Cup Playoffs or final a year ago. I think that they'll get by Winnipeg, setting up a great showdown between the Predators and the Vegas Golden Knights. With that, I'll let you talk about who I think makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals before flipping over to Tela. I think in that projected series between Vegas and Nashville, I think we're going to see some really fun hockey. I think a lot of people would probably pick Nashville, but I do think Vegas makes a surprise run into the Stanley Cup Final in their first year in existence. And then maybe I'm a bit of a homer. Maybe I just have a little fatigue over the Penguins. They've been there the last 2 years and won it the last 2 years. But I do see the Bruins getting by the Penguins, setting up Bruins versus Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final.
I'm not going to disagree. I definitely think the Vegas Golden Knights, they're a strong contender this year. Their first year in the conference, so I definitely think that they're going to be the Western kind of spotlight into the playoffs, into the Stanley Cup championship game. And I, as Sebastion said, also a homer. Definitely think the Bruins are coming by that Pittsburgh Penguins team. It's going to be a hell of a series to watch, though. I can't imagine they're not going to get that done. 6 or 7 games for sure, but the Bruins are definitely coming out of the Eastern Conference, so I'm going with you. Bruins, Golden Knights.
All right. And then again, maybe it's homering me. Maybe it's the fact that they have one of the best lines in hockey, even though Patrice Bergeron missed a game here in the Toronto series. I do think Boston just has a really good mix of veterans and young guys, great goaltending, good defense, dynamic scoring, especially with that top line of Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak. I think the Bruins find a way to beat the Golden Knights. That's going to be a good series. I don't think anybody would have predicted that at the beginning of the year, that you'd see those two teams, but I'm going to predict it now. It's the Bruins over the Golden Knights for the Lord's Stanley Cup.
So with that, we're actually going to switch over to the NBA playoffs. I, as we all know, am not a good NBA knowledge person. I don't have very many facts on it. So as always, we're going to bring in our NBA expert, Amin.
All right, and through the magic of video, Tela has become Amin for the NBA playoffs, our NBA expert. So like we just did with the hockey playoffs, we're going to give you a quick rundown of what's happened so far and how we think things will play out going forward. So in the first round so far, we've seen the New Orleans Pelicans and the Golden State Warriors out west both jump out to 3-0 leads over the Portland Trail Blazers and the San Antonio Spurs, respectively. Houston has a 2-0 lead as of this moment, Saturday, April 21st, over the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Oklahoma City, the Thunder, and the Utah Jazz are tied up 1 game apiece in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference right now, we have a 2-1 lead Toronto over Washington. We have a 2-1 lead the Pacers, a little bit surprisingly, although maybe not the way the regular season went, over the Cavaliers. The Philadelphia 76ers have a 2-1 lead over the Miami Heat, and the Boston Celtics, after getting just totally beaten up last night by the Milwaukee Bucks, cling to a 2-1 lead over the Bucks in that series. So, based on what we've seen in the first round so far, what are just your general thoughts, of what we've seen so far and where we think this is going?
Well, let's start with the West, because in my opinion, that's a little bit more easier to actually break down. We're going to start off with the Houston matchup versus Houston Rockets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I think that based on how this series has gone so far, the Timberwolves are a mess. They just played horribly. I don't even know what is going on, how the way they're utilizing Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I think that they have to give him the ball even more often. And the Houston Rockets in my opinion, looks like it's going to be a clean sweep for them. And then if you look at the next matchup, OKC versus Utah Jazz, I actually think the Utah Jazz is actually going to take on the series. I believe it's going to be a 7-game series, and it's going to be a huge upset for OKC after acquiring Carmelo Anthony and trading for Paul George. That's going to be a huge upset. And next matchup, which is New Orleans, which is surprisingly they're a 3-0 lead over Portland. I don't see Portland winning Game 4 in New Orleans, so I think that's going to be a sweep. And I mean, Golden State versus San Antonio Spurs. I mean, I think that's also going to be a sweep. I don't see the Spurs recovering after missing their coach, and I don't know if Greg Popovich is going to be back after his wife passing. So I think the Spurs are done.
Yeah, without Kawhi Leonard too. I think.
Yeah, without Kawhi Leonard, that definitely is a huge loss for them.
I'll disagree with you though on the Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma does pull that out with Utah. I think that's going to be a longer series. I agree with you on 7, but I think Oklahoma finds a way maybe just by home field advantage. But
yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, I agree everywhere else. Eastern side,
a little bit more complicated, I think.
It really is. I think the only one I feel confident about is I do think Philadelphia gets by Miami. It might take 7, but that's the one I feel most confident about of the 3 right now. Maybe Indiana second. They seem to have LeBron's number. They seem to be the kryptonite to LeBron and the Cavs. They play a really good team game and good defense. They held the Cavs just 90 points the other night, which sounds like a lot to some, but the Cavaliers team is capable of putting up much more. So I think those are the 2 that, if I had to put money on, I'd put it on the 76ers and the Pacers, but if I had to put money on anybody, it's still LeBron James. So I'm really complicated in the
right.
East.
Yeah, no, let's start with the Toronto and Washington. I think Toronto's going to win it. I think Washington is just, I mean, with all due respect, I just think they're washed up. They're, in my opinion, they're just not a legit team. I don't see them getting out of the first round. I'll say Toronto will take it in 6. I want to leave Cleveland a little bit last, so we'll go talk about the Philadelphia and Miami. As you know, the last time when we recorded, I said Miami's going to be that sleeper team, and I actually do think that even with Joel Embiid, who he played fantastic in Game 3, I think this series is going to go 7 games. I believe Miami's going to take it. I actually want Miami to take it. For some reason, Philadelphia just scares me. They're just a young team. They have nothing, in my opinion. They just have nothing. This is not the year that I don't think they expected to be in the playoffs. So for them to be in the playoffs is actually huge, and they're trying to make something out of it. I hope they lose. I hope Miami wins, proves me right for my ego. Third, let's go over to Boston. Boston, with all those injuries that they're having, they have actually played very well in the very first 2 games. But what happened last night? Man, they got shellacked. Yeah. And that's just embarrassing. Me being a huge green teamer as I am, man, that was a tough game to swallow. And then the 4th series, Cleveland in Indiana. As I said last time, Cleveland is a complete mess, and you can see that in this series. We watched a game yesterday. LeBron in that first half looked fatigued. He looked tired. I don't even know if the way I was watching, he didn't look like he wanted to play. And what the hell is J.R. Smith doing taking that last shot? I mean, the last shot should go for the best player in the planet, LeBron James. I don't know. Coach LeBron, I think he just messed up on that one. Yeah. So I don't know. But if I had to predict, I'm sorry, I didn't predict the Boston series, but I think I picked the Boston series to win in 6 games, excuse me. I'm still standing by that. I think they're going to bounce back tomorrow, and they're going to beat Milwaukee. And, hey, who knows? Maybe they'll win in actually 5. But as for the Cleveland series, I think this is going to go 7 games. And as looks like Indiana's playing a lot better, Oladipo has just been fantastic. But you can never bet against LeBron James. He's never lost in the first round. I'm not gonna count him out unless this happens. So it never happened before. So I'm gonna still stick with Cleveland.
All right. Well, yeah. Like I said, it's the toughest one for me is that because I think Indiana's the kryptonite. But I agree with Toronto. My heart says Celtics. My gut says the Bucks find a way to get by them in 7. Maybe because of the injuries. I hate saying that because it's the Celtics. I'd love to see them in the finals. I think Philadelphia in 7. We've always kind of disagreed on the Heat. You've seen that in the video so far. But I'll also pick Cleveland. And then from there, in a projected Cleveland versus Toronto matchup, and Cleveland, again, is just LeBron James. It's nothing against the Pacers. I do think Cleveland finds a way past Toronto. Toronto is a really good team, but it's still LeBron James, and it's hard to bet against him. In terms of a 76ers versus Milwaukee Bucks, you kind of said earlier, they're young, the 76ers. They don't, maybe they weren't expecting to be in the playoffs or be a factor. And I think that's actually to their advantage. I think they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to prove. They're ahead of schedule. They're kind of like the Cubs from a couple years ago. Everybody thinks they're going to be good eventually, and they're good a couple years before they're supposed to peak. And so I think the Philadelphia 76ers are the team that right this moment that I'm kind of looking at in the East is kind of the team to beat. So I got the 76ers and the the Cavaliers playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. Out West, Houston just looks like a really strong team with some favorable matchups. Whether it's Oklahoma City or Utah, I don't think it matters to them. I think Houston ends up winning. I picked over Oklahoma City, but I don't think it really matters. Houston gets to the Western Conference Finals, and Golden State's just loaded. They're only going to get healthier in theory, so I think you're going to see Golden State and Houston in that Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. Let's start with the West. For the West, I pretty much agree with you. For the semifinals, I'm looking at Houston versus Utah. I mean, I'm going to say Houston's going to win in like 5 games. Let's give a game to Utah Jazz or your pick OKC. And then if you go on to the other side with New Orleans and Golden State, I like you said, Golden State's just going to get healthier, and I mean they're just going to wash whoever's. Well, New Orleans is going to be. I think they're going to win in a clean sweep actually. And then if you go to the conference finals, Houston versus Golden State. If you guys remember last time, I said that the Houston Rockets was one of those fraudulent teams, and they kind of reminded me of the 14 Atlanta Hawks. And you know what? I'm kind of going to stand by that. I don't think they're a match for Golden State, presuming that Steph Curry is going to be playing. And I would say that they will win. That Golden State will win in 5 games, and it's just going to be an easy path to the finals for Golden State. As the Eastern side, as we said, Eastern side is a little bit more complicated, but presuming that Cleveland will win, which I predict that they will be facing Toronto. I actually think Toronto is going to beat Cleveland. Cleveland is they're good enough to get out of the first round, but the way that they continue to be playing, there's just no way they can get out of the semifinals. And I just don't see that happening. I think Toronto is just a stronger team, and some people, including myself, say that the seeding really doesn't matter. Cleveland being the 4 seed, I mean, they can be the 4th, the 8th, the 1. Doesn't really matter for them because they still have the best player on the planet, and I think that matters in the NBA. But they're not going to get back past Toronto. Moving on to the other one, I said Miami's going to win in 7. Boston's going to win in 6. Boston's overall is a better team. If we get past the first round, we're going to have Marcus Smart back, which that is huge. And I think it's just going to be a piece of cake to get to the conference finals. And then you're looking at Toronto versus Boston. I know Boston has a lot of injuries. They don't have Kyrie Irving. Gordon Hayward didn't play at all this season. I mean, maybe a half a quarter. And, I just don't see, I cannot see Toronto in the finals. I just don't see it. And like I said, as a green teamer as I am, I know I have my green teamer shirt on, but I would say by the looks of the Eastern Conference, I think that the Boston will actually beat Toronto and face Golden State in the finals.
Interesting. So
that is interesting.
Golden State, you said in 5 over Houston. I'll take you I'll take you up on that. I think 100% or agree with you. Golden State 5 games over Houston in the Western Conference. They're almost a shoe-in as long as they stay healthy and they do get Steph Curry back. I think that's kind of a no-brainer in the West. In the East, we've already disagreed a lot on that.
Yeah.
I've got Philly and Cleveland in the finals. You've got Toronto and Boston in the finals. I think that the East actually goes to the 76ers. I didn't think I'd say that. I guess I trust the process more than I thought I did. Maybe it's because I spent some time in the Philadelphia region last year. I don't know. But Philly just got some kind of magic to them, right? The Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. Villanova wins the NCAA championship. Maybe the 76ers can ride that momentum, that young upstart team. They've got nothing to lose, nothing to prove. they can just go out and ball. And I think they make it into the NBA Finals, but I don't think it really matters who comes from the East. I think this is Golden State's championship to lose. I think if it's Philadelphia, if it ends up being Boston, if it's Cleveland, I think this is, we're almost looking at a sweep, maybe 5 games at most. I think Golden State wins it all.
Yeah, I will have to say this. If Philadelphia beats Miami, and presuming Boston will beat Milwaukee, that matchup is going to be so tough for Boston. The way Philadelphia was, what is it? They finished the season like 15-1.
Yeah, it was the hottest team entering the playoffs.
Right.
Philadelphia.
And the way Joel Embiid played, he's virtually, arguably, probably the top 5 players in the league. Like when he's on the field, when he's on the court, that's going to be a really tough matchup with the Celtics if they face Philadelphia, and I honestly don't see the Celtics getting past that round. But that is presuming Philadelphia will lose against Miami. Then everything will change. Then next week we can talk about it, or 2 weeks from now, and I'll probably have a different bracket.
Sounds good. So in the finals, you have Golden State versus Celtics.
Yeah.
Is it safe to presume Golden State?
Oh, Golden State is just going to wash up the Celtics. Celtics will be lucky if they got one game. The Kyrie Irving injury hurts them. Hurts them a lot.
Sounds good. So that's our take on the NBA playoffs. You saw our take a minute ago with Tela and I on the NHL playoffs. We're actually going to be back tomorrow with another video. We missed last week because of some ice storms in New England and some power outages throughout. We weren't able to get a good video recorded or uploaded, hence 2 this weekend. So NBA Finals with Amin and NHL Finals with Tela uploading right now. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow with some information about the NFL draft that's coming up this Thursday. Thanks for watching. This has been Bloodlight Beatdown.